Welcome everybody to another edition of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education, and we have a very special episode for today. We've got a guest in-house with us. Mark, we're going to introduce him in a couple of minutes. Right now, just so everybody knows, the weekly webinar, Think with a Drink, is brought to you by the Aries Foundation. You can visit Aries Foundation at www.ariesfoundation.org. Mission behind the Aries Foundation is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because in case you didn't know it, you are in a relationship with your money. And, you know, just like every other personal relationship that you might have, there are behaviors and emotional triggers that cause us to act, well, irrationally sometimes when it comes to our money and our finances. All Craig, myself, and the rest of the Aries team tries to do is help everybody have a better handle and take some of that emotion out of it. One of the things with these episodes, just so you know, we're a nonprofit organization. They're meant to be educational, informational. We do share them on our YouTube channel. We are recording on new TV. You can see the episodes on there. All we ask is that if you share any of these episodes, that you do so in a educational and informational manner only. Now comes the fun part of the evening, gentlemen. We call this Think with a Drink because a lot of the topics that we're covering, and tonight we're covering one that's very near and dear for Craig and I, which is how to fund a supplemental or special needs trust. But we call it Think with a Drink because we want it to be more casual, be a little bit more relaxed. Everybody can sort of, enjoy and imbibe along with us in the audience. So today we are drinking, this is the Harpoon IPA, which basically launched Harpoon Brewery here in Boston. Definitely their flagship beer. And say to everybody, Skål.
Skål.
Oh, that's good. All right, so we want to introduce our guest. Like we said, our guest today is from the Plan of Mass and Rhode Island, and I'm not going to steal any of his thunder as he goes forward and introduces. But Mark, if you want to just tell us a little bit about the Plan of Mass and Rhode Island.
Sure. Thank you both for having me first off. He asked me to join you for a beer. I didn't realize there'd be cameras, but this is great. So Plan of Mass and Rhode Island, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We've been around for over 50 years. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year.
That's right. Yep.
The organization was founded by parents of children who had disabilities, and they were worried about their children's future after they passed. So this organization was set up to kind of ease that burden and hopefully give some peace of mind to the parents that we help.
And now you guys just moved, right?
We are in the process of moving this week, so it's been a little chaotic.
A little crazy.
Yeah, we are in Needham currently, but we're moving to Braintree.
Okay.
And then we also have an office in Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's right. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm somewhat recent to Plan, a couple of months in, and previous to that, I spent 20 years in banking. I was licensed financial advisor. I oversaw the retail and mortgage division at South Shore Bank most recently, and I have had some exposure to trusts and dealing with families with disabilities in my personal family as well. So this is a position and a role with an organization that means a lot to me.
Okay, terrific. Yeah. So as we go, and that would have been moved that slide so that you could have brought Mark's bio up.
Hey, there he is.
There he is. See, the handsome guy that he is, and we've got him live in person.
The same
here.
shirt on. Huh?
Yeah, look at you. See, you knew, right? So one of the questions we want to ask before we get into the whole concept of funding a special needs trust, right? We want to ask, because there's different types of trust.
Sure.
Now, the first one is a first-party trust, right? That's what we, So can you just give us the ins and outs or little details on a first-party trust?
Sure. A first-party trust is funded with the individual or beneficiary's own funds. So a lot of times this will come as the result of a settlement of a personal injury settlement or some other form of settlement. Also for individuals over 65, generally first-party trusts is using their own money when they have to receive public benefits for long-term care, in that they put their own money into the special needs trust to preserve those benefits.
Oh, I get it.
Because they're means tested, and generally, if you have over in Massachusetts, it's $2,000. In Rhode Island, it's $4,000. If you have over that amount, you can lose your benefits. So putting that funds into a special needs trust takes that off the table, and that doesn't count towards that $2,000 or $4,000 limit.
Now, isn't there you have to have a trustee, right?
Correct.
Right. Even though, say, Craig was the individual setting it up and Craig's the beneficiary, Craig would still have to have a trustee overseeing that.
Correct, yes. And for individuals over 65, a nonprofit has to be the trustee, according to the regulations. So PLAN is one of the very few organizations that can do that for individuals over 65. But for other individuals who are under 65, trustee services are part of what we provide. But just sometimes they choose family members or brothers, sisters, and we can talk about the pros and cons that come with that. Preserving the relationship. Whenever money is involved in between family members, then it is, can be challenging. But also just understanding benefits. So when you choose a trustee, you want somebody who's going to know what the disbursements are qualified, and God forbid you make a disbursement that's not qualified and lose your benefits. Anyone who's been through that knows how awful it can be to try to get them back.
Right. Because these rules never change, right?
Oh yeah, only weekly, and we have a staff that is on top of it and sits through all the webinars, reads all the SSI POMs, and goes through everything, and that's really all that we do. So asking a brother or sister who's not trained to do that is quite the ask.
Right.
Yeah, puts a lot of stress on them.
It does.
And so then, besides the first party trust, we have the third party trust, right?
So the major difference that most people care about between first and third party is a first party trust has a Medicaid payback at the end of life.
Right.
So Medicaid's going to get their hands on whatever they can at the end of life, whereas a third party trust does not have that. So through proper estate planning, you can have, turn what could potentially be a first-party trust into a third-party trust. So you have beneficiary designations, which I think we're going to touch on, and how to structure those properly, but also the estate planning, just ensuring that everything goes to the trust and never into the individual's name, so it's never first-party, it's never their funds.
Right.
Yep.
So this is funded by anyone, right? Parents, the sibling, relative, friend,
Sure.
it doesn't matter.
It can be multiple sources: grandparents, parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, third-party trusts. If you can go that route, that is the preferred route because it's going to save you in the long run.
And then there's no, as you said, no Medicaid payback provision.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, when we come to Plan of Mass in Rhode Island, you are what is known as a pooled trust provider, correct?
We offer a pooled trust option.
Right.
The pooled trust is really a way for individuals if you didn't have, so the special needs trusts are offered through banks, attorneys, and generally what they look for are higher net worth dollar amounts. So access to a professional investment management team generally is $500,000 limit, some $1 million limit. Entering a pooled trust allows you that professional investment management, professional trustee services, even if you have $5,000.
Okay.
Because $5,000 could be the difference between having benefits and not having benefits.
Yeah.
So it really is, it's an affordable way for it to be accessible for everybody.
Okay. And because it's one of the questions that we get every now and then, which is, that whole, what does it mean by the pool, right? And how does that
It's
that
strictly for investment purposes. And,
No water wings involved?
No. Yeah, we're not jumping in, no.
But one of the things with the pool trust, right, if I'm correct on it, is that Medicaid payback provision comes into play.
Well, it depends if it's first or third party. So a third party can be in the pool as well, and a first party as well. So yeah, I mean, that's the differentiator is first or third party. So where the funds actually come from are really what determines if Medicaid is going to get paid back or not.
Oh, okay. So if it's third party and it's truly third party, then that doesn't come into play.
Correct.
Okay, that's great. So I know with Plan, where we're talking about this in this pooled arrangement, that plan is currently looking at, and maybe it has something to do with moving down the road or whatever, that you're about putting in together standalone third-party trusts?
Sure.
Right?
So this is somewhat new to the organization. We have, had one-offs in the past, but as the demand has increased for this, we're kind of changing the way that we handle it. So, so if someone comes to us and they have an existing trust, or they are establishing a standalone trust and they don't want to go the pooled route, that is now fine. We can be named as the trustee within that standalone trust.
Okay.
We have to review it first to make sure that there's nothing funky that's going to make our life as trustee difficult. We only serve as sole trustee. We've found that having co-trustees and having that can
So
be
would
tricky.
that be as if a family member wanted to name, I want my older son to be a trustee as well, so that wouldn't work?
We wouldn't be able to work with that. That does create challenging circumstances of two different mindsets. We're professional trustees who understand benefits. They may not and may not agree with it.
Why can't we give them a Tesla, that type of thing?
Exactly, yeah. So sole trustee is the only occasion where we can act as that. But on a standalone trust, and we've been working through this, and it's now something we're able to kind of put out there to the world, as well as having the standalone trust. We can allow the individual to have their own financial advisor if they're comfortable with them.
Oh, okay.
So they can manage the money, and we will act as trustee. So that's relatively new to plan, and something that we're really excited to get off the ground and start working with these advisors to help if they have a relationship with the beneficiary and we have a relationship with the beneficiary, it's all for the best. So
Right.
whatever's in the best interest of that beneficiary is what we're going to do.
Okay. And so when we talk about, because the topic is really about funding a supplemental needs trust, or for the audience, a supplemental needs trust go hand in hand with being called a special needs trust. So just so if we're dropping those in terms in there, talking about the same thing, supplemental needs or special needs trust. But when we talk about funding, a lot of times what Craig and I run into is we'll run into a family that's set up a trust, but hasn't funded it yet, right? That there's nothing that's designated or put there to fund it. What I think you call a future funded trust, right?
Absolutely, yep.
And is that something that plan runs into?
Oh yeah, all the time. And that's becoming more and more popular as the people become more informed of how these trusts work. Because future funded trusts are great estate planning tools that allow, what could potentially before that become a first-party trust with that Medicaid payback, now become a third-party trust with no Medicaid payback. So that could save hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the trust.
Right, and in that situation, you're talking about like the situation like if Nana was going to leave money to the child who's differently abled, now Nana can put it to the trust, and then that way it bypasses that going to the child and having to become that first party, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the future funded trusts are becoming much more popular as estate planning tools, and we celebrate that, and we'll work with you to establish it in the right way, to make sure the language is properly in there, so it doesn't ever get to the point where it's being questioned whether it was first party or third party.
And when should you, if you have a special needs child, set up that pooled trust?
The sooner the better. Yeah, I mean,
Before you die is a good time?
yeah. So
okay.
since nobody knows that, it's
Yeah.
probably the sooner the better. We run into people all the time that I've been meaning to do this, I've been wanting to do this, I've meant to do this. It really does take it's a tough conversation to have, and it's a tough thing to wrap your head around. Is you passing and not being able to take care of your child.
Now, if I set up a trust, does that mean I'm going to die?
Someday, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
The trust guarantees it, yeah.
yeah, okay, great. No, but I think that's some of the thing. People don't want to look at it because it's a mortality issue.
Absolutely. Same
Right.
reason people, drag their feet on getting life insurance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have to
Or
start
a
thinking
will
about
or something
or a
like
will,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a piece of that. So when you're thinking about what's going to happen to your children after you pass, a special needs trust is part of the conversation.
So kind of rip off the Band-Aid to get it over with, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so one of the things with that, that I know because it comes up a lot as far as funding, right? Especially future funding,
Yep.
right? The whole idea of sort of remainder assets, right? I'm just going to leave whatever is available at the end to the trust, and a lot of times we get asked about retirement plans and putting retirement plans into a supplemental needs trust. And I know, okay, if there's stuff left over at the end, you can do that,
Yep.
but it's your retirement account, right?
Right. What we found is, a lot of the vehicles that people want to leave for remainder trusts are great for what they're intended. Like a retirement plan is great for retirement,
Absolutely,
right? Home is good for living in. As far as passing as an asset, though, there's lots of different tax ramifications that can make it difficult to manage inside of a trust. And in fact, trusts have different tax brackets anyway.
They do.
That could make it more erosive to the assets you're trying to leave.
Yeah, and the real challenge is it's that balance, because you want these funds, whether they're in a retirement account, you've spent your life saving up and earning them for your children, but hopefully you get to use them during retirement. But if not, you do want them to go to your kids, but there's going to be some significant tax implications with that. You have to balance that versus if I leave it to them in another way, if I get it directly to them and they may not have an income, so the tax bracket might be lower than the trust tax bracket, but then they're going to lose their benefits. And the benefits can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over their life. So you really have to offset the two and determine which one's going to be the right strategy. I think a better way is what we're going to kind of talk about is to fund it with a life insurance policy, and that's a more effective way that's going to have zero tax implications, and then also have the ability for it to be a third party and none of the payback, and it really does kind of work well together.
Well, also, isn't the point of a trust is you're trying to make it as easy on the family as possible should something happen to the caregivers, right?
Absolutely.
And so if you have assets that have to either, like, especially if it's a home or it has to be liquidated, or stocks or something along those lines, now the executor has to deal with the liquidation of assets, which can once again erode. Or even take time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Take a lot of time now with COVID in the courts and all that. So now you're these kids bleeding on these assets that may be in limbo.
Yeah, and then think about if we weren't in this hot real estate market that we're in now. It could take 6 to 8 months to sell a home. All the expenses that come along with that along the way, the upkeep, the
even
taxes.
the market timing issues, right?
Yeah,
down
market timing, exactly. You're in a down market, you could be upside down if there's a mortgage, so that's a tough thing to kind of guess.
It's something that we run into with parents a lot with that, about wanting to leave the home, or leave the home so the child can continue to live in it. I know they're an adult now, but they're comfortable, they like the neighborhood, whatever the case may be. But we do run into situations and hear stories a lot of trusts that become house rich and cash poor because of a lot of what you're talking about, where having to pay for the real estate taxes depending on where you are, the insurance, upkeep, forget about mortgage or not a mortgage. I mean, that becomes a different, and what happens ultimately there is that those properties end up having to get liquidated at some point, where now you've not directed the child to someplace else to go. You've sort of left them in limbo, because now they have to go someplace else, because it's the only way that the trust can continue is to liquidate that property. So while great intentions, that sometimes these are unforeseen consequences that come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And for plan, we don't hold real property. So the house, if it was going to go into a trust that was managed by plan, would have to be liquidated prior.
Okay.
Another strategy that we've seen work, if there's siblings, you could potentially leave the home to the sibling and then establish a life estate for the disabled individual, so they could be assured that they're going to be in the home, but it's not their asset to go against the means test for their benefits. So I mean, that's one strategy to take. But yeah, I mean, holding property in your special needs trust is a real challenge, and we advise against it in all cases.
Now, does that create a potential liability issue, though, if that other child owns the property and they get into a financial strait?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing to consider. I mean, it's going to be, you have to know your family dynamic very well, and
which can change.
Try to anticipate how it's going to be in the future, and that's not an easy thing to do. So, yeah, I mean, guys like yourself who can give advice for these financial matters are who we would recommend you speak to on matters like that. But yeah, I mean, it really is a tough situation when you get a home involved.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things we talk to a lot of families about, I mean, whether they have a child who's differently abled or has a disability, or just typical children involved, that about beneficiary reviews, right? We're very strongly about dealing with beneficiary reviews and talking to families about beneficiary reviews, because like you said, a lot of times what you wind up with is that unforeseen consequence, whether it's you or Nana or somebody else just named, all of my grandchildren, are going to get an asset type of thing, and that can cause a problem.
I got a call today, right before I came here, of a woman. She's 66 years old, and she's in public housing. She has SSI, and she had an unforeseen inheritance come in. It's $45,000, not a huge amount, but it's definitely it's
A lot of money to me. I'd take
a lot of money.
that.
Absolutely, yeah. But for her, she's so nervous and anxious about it because her benefits are now at risk.
Right.
Because it wasn't planned properly,
Yeah.
and now it's her money. She has to establish special needs trust, put it into that. Her benefits are probably going to be put on hold until that fund
gets settled.
Until it gets settled. Yeah. So I mean that's a really difficult thing for her to deal with. She's worrying about her next doctor's appointment, and is she going to be able to have Mass Health to pay for it? So
And the only other option would be to decline it, right?
yeah,
And you lose the money altogether.
she doesn't want to do that. So yeah, I mean the proper estate planning and beneficiary designation will make all the difference in these type of situations.
And really the idea there is to just go back and look at, because there's a lot of assets that don't pass via a will, they pass by beneficiary designation. So that's, like we talked about, whether it's a retirement account, IRA, anything like that, a life insurance policy, those type of things, you want to make sure you know who the beneficiaries are. Because as Mark pointed out, a lot of times we have the best of intentions, but they can lead to unforeseen consequences for somebody down the road that trips them up where didn't plan for it. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, most individuals don't know to turn to plan or to turn to somebody to say, help me with this, and then they end up just losing their benefits entirely.
Yeah, and that's a huge concern for the people that we speak to. And the value of benefits and understanding benefits and how to preserve them is really what differentiates us. We're staffed with licensed social workers who understand benefits, who know, like I said, they read the updates and the changes to the POMs and all that. So to stay on top of it, and then the one-on-one service that we provide with these social workers and our staff that set up the spending plan, that can knows how to work with people who have the intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, and how to set their wish lists and ensure that nothing is going to be put at risk, and also to ensure that they're getting all the benefits that they are eligible for. So taking a second look at their situation. So these are all things that we provide as a service. Whether you're we'll even if you're not a client, if you don't have a trust with us, we'll be happy to sit down with you and kind of review your situation to ensure that you're getting everything that you can and you're in the best possible spot.
Yeah, I affectionately refer to that as social workers with checkbooks.
Yeah, that's right. And they have to be, because they know what's going to affect the benefits. And again, that goes back to naming a family member as trustee. Are you confident that they're going to stay up on the regulations?
Right.
Or that they're doing everything for that person's best interest.
Exactly.
They really need a swimming pool. Right? And they're over my house all the time, so we might as well put it here.
Yeah, and we ensure that type of I wouldn't call that abuse if it's a family member, but we can protect them to ensure that if they're in a group home, for example. We've had instances where we found out that they have a trust. Now all of a sudden we need a dining room set with 6 chairs, or we need a new flat screen TV for the family living room. So we're
quality of life issue, right?
Oh yeah, so we're there to ensure that those type of abuses do not take place.
That's wonderful. Great.
Yeah, and for the most part with that, because I know we touched on it, but just to make sure and clear to the audience, right, that plan does not have to be the primary trustee. You can be the successor, the next in line. So if it's parents still acting as trustee, at some point down the line, ultimately, you're either not going to be there or you're not going to be able to do it. And you need to have that backup situation, even if you're as well versed and you try to explain that, like Mark, went through, trying to relay that information to the next generation, to a sibling or even a relative of yours, an aunt, an uncle, something. It's just never going to carry the same weight as having that custodian, that backup there who can take over and then continue what you're trying to do, which is ultimately have the ability for your son or daughter to live the best life that they can.
And even while the parent's acting as trustee, if we're named as successor trustee, then we get involved right away.
Okay.
So we establish that relationship. So in the instance where someone does pass, unfortunately, and we have to step in, they already know us. They already have a relationship with Plan, and they know the social worker that's been assigned to them. So it really becomes a seamless process when a situation that is usually not seamless, to say the least.
Let me ask you this one quick question: have you ever had some of these trusts that aren't funded, that remain, want to remain their assets, not get funded because there wasn't anything that remained?
Oh, sure.
People had a long-term care issue or unexpected expenses, and
yeah, and that that's not a problem. I mean, it happens. I think it's probably better that in some instances, if it's a retirement account, for instance, that they're using the money while they're still alive. But yeah, I mean those instances happen where there's either a very small amount or nothing at all.
what's the best way to avoid that, though?
Proper planning, or setting up a life insurance policy, and that really gives you that peace of mind that regardless of my spending habits on the funds that I've accumulated over my lifetime, I have this backup for my children. That if anything does happen to me, even if I blow through my retirement account, I still have something for them on the side here.
Yeah, the way we describe that is having permission to spend the rest of your money, because you know that the trust or your son or daughter is taken care of in that situation by leveraging the life insurance contract, because that's ultimately what you're doing, is you're making sure, as Mark said, that future amount, that future dollar, whatever it is, and like we talked about, that even if it's just 50,000 or 70,000 or 100,000, that can make a significant difference to somebody's the ongoing on top of all of those benefits. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. I think that's another part that happens with the trust conversation, is that it's like there has to be this $1 million type of thing.
I mean, we do $10,000 trusts all the time, and that's, again, there's really no other option. I mean, you either give up the $10,000 or you lose your benefits.
Right.
That are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you don't want to do either. So establishing the trust is a great way to, that $10,000 can make a huge difference in someone's life, whether it's a form of therapy that they want to pay for out of the trust, or even just the quality of life, going to the movies, or going on vacation. These are all things that the trust can help pay for.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody wanted to reach out and contact the Plan of Mass Rhode Island, how would they do that?
So our email address is on the screen here. Myself and Kathy, our Director of Operations, feel free to email us anytime. But our website's a great resource. A lot of information on there, a lot of resources for organizations that we partner with, Best Buddies, Special Olympics, Northeast Arc. These are all wonderful organizations that do a lot of great things, and we support them completely. And there's resources that they have on our website that people can join in on.
And that website, it's planofmass-ri.org.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Just Google Plan of Massachusetts.
Another one quick question, too, is it expensive to set up a pool trust?
It is not, and the application fee can be as little as $500 depending on the type of trust. The fees that we charge are generally, historically we have data to kind of prove this, offset by the investment performance. Our hope is that the investment performance will outperform the fee, and then in essence it pays for itself. Because again, you have access to professional investment management regardless of the amount. So there's no threshold that you have to meet in order to qualify for that.
Okay, that's terrific. So listen, we appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.
Mark, listen, if you do have questions, and anybody who has a child that is differently abled or has a disability, we recommend reaching out to the Plan of Mass in Rhode Island. If you ever have any questions for us, you can reach us. Again, you can visit the website. It's www.ariesfoundation.org. You can shoot us an email. It's info@ariesfoundation.org. And on that note, we want to say thank you to Mark, to the Plan of Mass, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank you.